This episode of Storytellers is brought to you by these fine companies.
I'm Scotty Cannon. You're watching Drag Racing Storytellers at CompetitionPlusTV. Well, you know, if it wasn't for Jim Jannard that owned Oakley, I wouldn't have got the opportunity to do it. And the way the deal kind of come about is I'll back things back. Is he was at the last race of the IHRA, and he come walking up, and it was just a man and a woman. And he's, you know, the words out of his mouth was he said he'd heard, I ain't exactly what he said, but he'd heard a lot about me and this, that, and the other. And he didn't tell me no feels, but he didn't ever tell me exactly who he was. And he wanted to buy a couple T-shirts, and I remember selling him a couple T-shirts, and it was on a Thursday. And he asked me how I was going to do, and I said, "Well, I've done won a championship." He said, "Well, if you don't win a champ," I remember asking me that. I said, "Well, I don't won a championship, so it up." He said, "Well, I thought you maybe had or something like that." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I stood back there and talked to him for a while, and it was on a Thursday. We hadn't raced yet. And he said, "Well, how you think you'll run out here?" He said, "Since you don't win a championship, you think you run for it or go for it?" I said, "I run it hard as it'll run, long as it'll run." And knowing him now, I didn't know how much merit that probably did seat with that man, because that was probably the right thing to say. I didn't know who it was. So I run the first round on qualifying. I was 6th or 7th or 8th or something. And the next round, here he comes walking back up. I thought you was going to run faster, or not like smart alecky like that. Or is your car going to run faster? And I said, "Yeah, I go number 1. If I don't, I'll be close." I said, "You know, if I run too fast, if I go too fast, they cut my kahunas off." I said, "I'm not sandbagging, but I got me a good manifold and stuff. I found some stuff, and I'm ahead of this winter, and I just that's my match race motor in there. To be honest with you," I said, "my best one, I got 2 national event motors, 1 match race motor." I said, "They sitting there fresh." I said, "If I don't have to run them or don't run them, or just maybe put them in right before race day, it'd save me some money." He said, "I'd put it in there and run it now." And I said, "Well, if you had my money, you wouldn't." He said, "Well, you need a better sponsor." And boys, one of my guys, while he was standing, I'm pretty sure he said, "We're going to change the motor, or are you going to try to run this thing?" And I said, "Just put it in there." I said, and he asked me which one. I had one that had I call it a cheesecake crankshaft, real light set of rods in it. It had like pro stock. It was blown, but pro stock stuff. And you had to really watch it. But it'd run 2/10 quicker than my match race motor. We stick it in there. Straight to number 1. He comes over, he said, "Well, I guess you walk the walk and talk the talk." And he got to talking to him, and he said, never forget it. He said, "Well, I got a little connection." He said, what kind of glasses you got on? I said, "I don't know. I don't know." I said, I just get glasses at the store when I go in the store." He said, "You know, wrong kind of glasses hurt your eyes, son." And he was sitting there with a pair of Oakleys on, and this big old watch on. And I didn't know it was Oakley. And he said, "You need to wear good glasses." I said, "Well, I wear safe glasses when I'm welding or something that way." He said, "Well, I don't know so much about sponsoring cars." He said, "But I know I can put good glasses." He said, "I got a good enough connection," or something of that nature. "How would you like to have some glasses? I can at least hook your crew up with glasses." I said, "Goodness, like you got on them goodness, son, Oakleys?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "For a year?" I said, "I'll put your name on the quarter panel for that." He said, "Well, let me get you a dress. Let me get you a dress and stuff." He said, "I got some connections." I said, "You sure?" "I'm pretty sure," he said, or something like that. He really downplayed his role pretty hard on me. And I didn't know I was talking to a billionaire. And make a long story short, I was in the staging lanes, and we had Hooverstown. I said, guess what? I said, I had smoke blowed up my butt before. I said, but next year, I said, you'll see Oakley on the quarter panel of my car, and we'll all have some cool glasses on if we ain't got nothing else. We'll look cool. And I was rubbing it in, boy. I was happy as, I guess, happy as you could be. So, but he did tell me, he said, look for a box, and if you can remember, call me Monday. And he gave me a number, and it was his cell phone number. But I don't know who I'm calling. I mean, I was calling Bobby Bennett and Scotty Cannon. So I called him. Yep, I'll get it out today, and you have it. Well, Tuesday rolls around, and naturally, I figured they ain't gonna send me no 2 or 3 pair of glasses. Tuesday rolls around, he calls me and said, I got your glasses out, send them to you. He said, do me a favor, call me tomorrow. It's on Wednesday. Call me tomorrow and let me know which ones you like the best. Yes, sir. I said, well, I can tell you now, I'm gonna like them all. You ain't gonna hurt my feelings. He sent me a box. It was this wide, this tall. Next day. And it probably weighed 50, 60 pounds. UPS man, you can tell he's struggling to put it in there, and he set it down. And good gracious, I said, what in the world did he see? So I cut that thing open, and there wasn't no packing in the box. It was glasses. And I sat down, and then that's when he broke the news to me. He said, how do you like those glasses? Something to that extent. And I'm like, I like them all. He said, well, which ones would you wear on TV? Or so asked me a couple of, they weren't stupid questions, but they're kind of stupid now. After I can say that now, once we've done it. And I said, any of them you want me to wear? He said, any of them? He said, I usually don't ask somebody to do this. He said, but could you fly to Oakley tomorrow? He said, let me explain to you who I am. He said, I'm Jim Jannard. I'm like, all right. But I'm on cloud 9 right now. But he said, and I won't never forget it. He said, do me a favor. He said, I'll give you all your money when you get back. He said, rather than me try to get it booked and all, he said, fly to your local airport. He said, quick as you can, early as you can, call me and let me know when, get it booked. I said, okay, well, I can do that. So I called him back, got me a flight, called him, told him when to pick me up and everything. And before I hung up, he said, let me just check. I said, well, is this a joke or is it real? He said, well, let me just put it this way for you. He said, I don't know nobody tell you, I think, to ask you much about me or whatever. He says, but if you can do some checking on me, you got tonight or tomorrow, he said, people will probably, you can probably figure out who I am. And I said, no, I already know who you are if you own it. I can about guess what you are. And I didn't know if you were $10 or $25 million. I didn't care. He says, I said, well, what's the chances of me getting the wrong one? I said, I won't come. I said, man, I've had so much. I get my hopes up on something like this. I said, man, I'll have a nervous breakdown or something of that nature. And he said, well, they ain't but one person can mess it up, you. I said, how can I mess it up? He said, say no. I said, what do you mean say no? He said, just say you don't want to do it. I said, so you telling me you offering me a ride right now? He said, yeah. He said, I'll be so easy to get along with, and it'd be so I said, do you know how much money it costs to do that? He said, I know exactly what it costs. I said, well, I don't. And he hit me with a few numbers, and I'm like, all right, are you sure? He says, well, if it don't, it's okay. I said, so I ain't got to run on a certain amount of money? He said, if it costs more to run the car, where you going to get the money? Park it? I don't do that. I'll stay where I'm at. He said, like I said, the only one can mess this thing up for you is you. Just say no, you don't want to do it. Or when you get here tomorrow, if you don't like what you see, and you don't like when you get your little tour through Oakley, just tell me before you get in it. Tell me you don't want to do it. I said, I don't think you're going to have that problem. When I got the opportunity and Jim Jannard approached me, he asked, I think the question was, what would you do to drive one of those things? Because he had heard through one of my interviews that was my dream. I didn't even know who he was. And he had met me at a race, and it's the last race I ran IHRA. And I didn't know who he was, and I said, shoot, I'd take, it was a certain part of my body off and pickle it and put it on a mantle somewhere if I could drive one of them things. Be careful what you ask for, son, you might be in one. The next Wednesday, I was in California.